सर्वत्र गोविन्दनाम संकीर्तनं गोविन्दा गोविन्दा। कलये सुन्दराकारं सदैकप्रियदर्शनम् अज्ञाननाशकं देवं सद्गुरुं मुरलीधरं। श्रीहरये नमः, श्रीहरये नमः, श्रीहरये नमः। सद्गुरु महाराज की जय। With the immense blessings of our beloved Guru Maharaj, Maharanyam, Sri Sri Muralidhara Swamiji, and by the costless mercy of Sri Madhuri Sakhi Sameta Premika Varda Thakurji, and also by the mercy of Sri Aishwarya Srinivasa Perumal, we are all relishing Bhagavatam as part of our day-to-day life. That itself is a great fortune being bestowed upon us. Generally, when people do stuff, they ask, what do I get in return? Especially when it comes to religion. Almost always, all of us needs to be bribed to do something, right? So, you do this, you get that. You do this, you get this. If you don't do this, this is what would be given as punishment or whatever. And so, somehow this business of religion has become a business in its true sense, where I do something, I expect something in return. It's purely an equation. And that's a very onerous task to do if we have to do something expecting that I will get something in return at some point of time later, you see. But the good news is there are some aspects of a religion which need no enticement, or which needs no requirement to be bribed, etc. And that's the joyous part of our religion, and it's called rasa, or the relishable part of our religion. And generally, of all the paths, the path of bhakti or devotion seems to actually take the cake there, because truly, when we are in the path of bhakti, we need no other enticement. The path of bhakti, the path of relishing the various activities in bhakti itself seems to be an end in itself. So I don't need anything out of it. I get everything within it. And that dharma is generally called Bhagavata dharma. That's what we are all following in some form or the other, to some extent or other. And this is Bhagavatam, where it says, why don't we just enjoy it? Why do we need a promise of something else in future? And this is a very simple thing. I'm sure you'll all understand. You're all very intelligent people. When we bring in time, there is always fear. Nobody is afraid of the present moment. The moment there is a gap or a hiatus or a small gap in time, that's when fear creeps in. And whenever I put an effort and there is a promise of a reward which is extrinsic, which is not within the effort but out of an effort, literally, I hope you get what I'm saying. When we get something out of something, which means it's not in it. So if it's out of it, it's obviously not in it, isn't it? Then fear comes, because I have put an effort. I don't know whether I'm going to get a result or not out of it. And because I have given a gap between my work and expectation of a result from the work, I have separated it, I have brought a gap, I have brought a hiatus, and that's where fear creeps in. That's what is called time. When I relish what I am doing, and when what I am doing is an end in itself, then there is no chance of kalam, there is no chance of time creeping in form of fear. When I say time, I don't mean your time shown by your watch or time shown in your mobile phone. I mean a mental time. A mental time comes in when I separate an activity I do with the results of an activity outside of that activity. So anything I do, if I want a result which is outside of the activity, there has to be a tinge of fear, because time creeps in. I have done something, the result has to come. So obviously I have separated my activity and a result with this little separator called time. It will come in time, they say now. But Bhagavatam, I know all of you know the Dhyana Shloka, you have read it. Bhagavatam promises something else. It says Takshanat. Sadhyo gridhyavaruddhyate atra kritibihi sushrushubihi takshanat. When there is takshanat, you all know takshanam. If you have had your grandparents around, or if you have been around your grandparents, I'm sure most of these South Indian grandparents use the word takshanam. Takshanam means that very second. When we listen to Krishna Katha, or when we think about Krishna, or when we read about Krishna, or when we talk about Bhagavan Sri Krishna, there is no time gap between me listening and me bringing Krishna into my thoughts and getting the fruit of it. It is immediate, because the very reading of Bhagavatam, very listening of Bhagavatam, the very exposition or telling of Bhagavatam is an end in itself. And so there is no fear. That's why it is said that in this path there is no fear. Why? Because there is no fear that will I get the result or not. You see, because as I am chanting and I am relishing the chanting, as I am doing the Parayan of Bhagavatam, while I am doing it, I am getting the benefit of it. It is then and there available to me. I am relishing it, so I don't need anything apart from it. If something comes, let it come. But that's not my objective. I am listening to Krishna Katha. I am trying to understand life in a better way, as seen through the eyes of Bhagavatam. While I am exploring this, while I am experiencing this, the word is experience. So the moment I experience it, there is no gap, there is no time involved, so I get that satisfaction and the joy immediately. That's the beauty of the path which we are all following. And the operative word out here is experience, anubhavam. They call it in Sanskritam Bhagavat Gunanubhavam, which means I am relishing or experiencing the joy of putting these wonderful qualities of Bhagavan in my heart. See, we humans need to look up to some models, or we need to look up to some perfect people, or extremely successful people, as a way to sort of stretch ourselves to move forward. We idolize, right? Fortunately, we don't have to idolize humans. We have divinities themselves who can be our source of inspiration, source of joy when I remember them, etc. And that's the idea of Ramayana and Bhagavatam. Ramayana is one aspect of divinity which is very structured, very methodical, very truthful, follows rules and regulations 200%, you see, and something like a perfection and a perfect man type of a thing, perfect person. And of course they come in couples, so Sita and Ramji, they both are perfect. And then there is another aspect of divinity which is shown by Bhagavatam, which is all same divinity. In Bhagavatam, this is a wonderful aspect of divinity, our beloved Lord Bhagavan Sri Krishna, who is spontaneous, fun-loving, filled with so much joy, and whose only objective seems to be spreading love and joy wherever he goes, whomever he sees, or whatever he touches. You see, the entire purpose of Bhagavatam is prema, love. And love and joy, or love and happiness, or love and divine joy, they are inseparable. Where there is divine love, there is divine joy also. So here Bhagavatam very beautifully opens a very exciting door of adventure within us, obviously. And this wonderful door of adventure is actually opening the doors of love, joy, spontaneity, and relish. When you see something very refined, when you see something very beautiful, when you see something very rare, when you see something very grand, we immediately feel the joy. That's because that's the beauty of that which is grand, that which is unique, etc. Likewise, everything in Bhagavatam, especially when it comes to Krishna Katha, is very unique. And it's very beautiful, it's very grand. The way it is presented is not in a very cut and dried form. It brings a lovely ambience along with it. So when you say experience, let me use a very can I use a worldly example? You are hungry, and suppose you go to your friend's place for dinner, okay? And when I go to the friend's place for dinner, while I am going there to fill my tummy, obviously I'm very hungry, I'm going there to eat, right? That's a clear objective, if I can use the word. But then while you enter that house, they have lit their porch, and it is tastefully decorated, and the people are waiting at the door to invite you. There are smiles all around. And while you enter, they give you a bunch of flowers and say, "We are very happy, please come in." And you feel good. And you start, as you say in your parts of the world, soaking into that experience. You see, so you go in, and it's a very beautifully lit. There's this very ornate dining table with a lot of scented candles. And then dishes are laid beautifully. Now I have not yet sat down to eat, but now I am preparing for this lovely experience of tasting a cuisine, or what do you call it? I am actually in a foodie experience, even without touching the food yet. And when I sit down to eat and the food is also very tasty, etc., then I'm going to say, I came to eat in your place, but you have given me a wonderful experience of dining. That's the word, isn't it? I have got now a total dining experience where the food is a most important part, obviously, but so is the ambience. So is the ambience, so is the invite, etc. Likewise, our Bhagavatam, when it is trying to tell a very deep, profound, extant truth, it gives us the entire experience of the truth and not just give a dry fact. For example, if you go to the 8th canto and read Gajendra Moksham, even before you can see Gajendra, who is the king elephant, Bhagavatam describes the entire forest where Gajendra lived, where he roamed around, with a grand mountain of 3 peaks. One was, pale brassy colored, one was bright silvery colored, one was golden colored peak, and now you have a picture of huge mountains with 3 peaks, and lush green forests with teak, and with banyans, and with mango trees, and a lot of creepers intertwining trees. Now, piece by piece, Bhagavatam is bringing an ambience of the story, so that you don't just know the story, you don't just understand the story, you actually experience the story. And I tell you something which is very unique in this experience. When you merely understand a fact, you cannot transcend it. You get understood. If you merely listen to or merely know something, knowledge is having its limit. But if you can experience this story of Gajendra, a synergy happens in us. Lot of new aspects of the story start sprouting in the heart. In Sanskritam, it's called Pratibha. It's a very important term, it's a very technical term used by people who study aesthetics and literature. Pratibha means the poet or the divine Rishi, Shukamuni, or when it comes to Sri Madhura Geetam, it is our Guru Maharaj himself. He has spun a lovely poetry, a lyrical text, or a wonderful Purana like Bhagavatam. What he does is, he takes you inside that room of the story, and now because it is experiential, you will start discovering things which knowers of the story can't even imagine, which understanders of the story, I hope such a word exists, people who merely understood, people who merely knew, people who merely listened to Gajendra's moksha, cannot come even close to those who have experienced the katha. When you are experienced the katha, you start discovering new hues, you start discovering new aspects, you start discovering new nitty-gritties and new rasas, relishes, because that room has infinite rasa, and so nobody can ever say, I have completely done the room, I have completely explored it. No. Bhagavatam has been told by numerous Mahatmas. Starting from Shukamuni, then Parikshit heard it, and then we had Suta Pauranika saying that to other people. And then all Mahatmas have been listening to Bhagavatam, dwelling on Bhagavatam, experiencing Bhagavatam. To this day, nobody dares say, I've explored it fully. That's the beauty, na? That is the reason why Anubhavam is something different, because it gives rise to something called Pratibha. Pratibha means we will start discovering new things, like infinite sparks coming from a wildfire. Wrong example to use now, but that's the spark. You start getting new sparks once you get into the experience. But people who merely know, listen, or understand can never imagine Pratibha. But people who take the actual effort, or who are fortunate to get into the experience, Anubhava, are actually given to explore this unique thing called Pratibha. One of our ex-presidents of our nation, that lady who was a president, had Pratibha as her first name. She was the Honorable President of India. So that's Pratibha, and I urge all of you to check it out. You may have to Google a little bit deeper, because Google won't give you everything. You need to go a little deeper in the Google search to understand this. Pratibha. And it is this Pratibha which has led to innumerable songs by Alvars, by various poets, by Surdas. The same Makanchori Leela only, na? Bhagavan has done Makanchori Leela maybe almost every day, almost 5 times a day in his 11 years, starting from say age 3 or 4, for about, imagine how many years he has been doing Makanchori. That is merely the historic Makanchori done by Krishna in Vrindavan. There is also this divine Nitya Leela of doing all this by Bhagavan. So imagine the amount, the vast vistas and horizons of Krishna Leela, which are still being explored, and which shall still be explored in a continuous tense only. It can never say it has been explored, period, or full stop. And that's what is the beauty of experience. Even you and me, can be given this wonderful experience of Pratibha. And I assure you, it is so joyful, it is so, how do I say that, ecstatic. And that's the beauty of Bhagavatam. Every shloka of Bhagavatam has this tremendous scope for Pratibha, this tremendous scope to experience it and discover ever new. And that's why Bhagavatam says, Tadeva Ramyam Ruchiram Navam Navam. It is ever new. And for that we need to prepare ourselves. We need to have the Shraddha, we need to have the blessings of our master, and that comes, it's only bestowed. But once we are earnest and once we have Shraddha, Master's grace is always there with us, and we can also stumble into Pratibha. And so any experience has to be holistic, right? There can't be a fragmented experience. And that is the reason why even in the Venu Geetam, which we are going to see today, the experience is total. That's the magic of Shukamuni's words. That's the magic of Vyasa Bhagavan's words. Because Vyasa Bhagavan and Shukamuni, of course, is giving this experience for those who are a little open to that. And in that experience, there is no outer nature and inner nature. You get that one experience of love, which is manifested outside as the external nature, that gives us this wonderful chance to peep into the heart of all those loving devotees of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Vrajavasis. Before we enter into the heart of this divine love, we need to go outside in only, na? So here Shukamuni is trying to use such language which is the key to the door which opens our heart to the experience of divine love. That's the beauty of Venugeetam. The reason why our Swamiji says, in the evening time do Panchageetam, in the morning time do Panchastuti, etc., is because each of these Geetams has this tremendous capacity to open the lock of a door which leads us to this experience and what I said as Pratibha. And right now Pratibha sounds only like a proper noun to you, but then to know this verb and experience properly, we need to listen to that and try to make the connections so that you get more and more clearer idea of what this Pratibha is all about. So let's start with our Shukamuni's Venugeetam. The beauty is, Venugeetam basically means the song of the flute. So obviously, where should the song come from? It should come from Fluta Vachana. It should come from some Venu is telling, and then the flute's notes should come. Only then it is a song of the flute, na? But here, the one who is talking about the notes of the flute, which is the gopis' words, become Venugeetam. You see? Now, Venugeetam is not just a flute recital of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. It is now the description of what our Bhagavan did when he took out his flute and started playing the notes of love in his flute. How the entire universe responded to it. Now, be with me. One of the early steps of progress in Krishna Bhakti is a devotee getting this tune in the heart. The devotee starts to listen the wonderful notes of the flute in the heart. And that's the first step generally. That's why one of the famous songs in the old film called Meera, where our MS Amma acted there, in that she says, Katrinile Varum Geetam. That's the first sign of growth in Krishna Bhakti. And for us to get there, which is experience the notes of the divine flute of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, we need to start outside in. So how do we get to listen to Venugeetam is by thinking about, by chanting, by talking about the Venugeetam of the gopis. That attracts the Venugeetam of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Okay, that's the experience. So how we actually do that is, gopis, those great gurus of Uddhava Swami and all of us also, they give us the key to the door which opens us to the experience of this divine notes of the flute, which is nothing but notes of love. And the person who is playing this is the embodiment of love. That's why this Venugeetam is very special. And before we get into this gopi's heart of looking at the entire universe as responding to Bhagavan's Venu, okay, our Shukamuni is now allowing us to enter into this land of love called Vrindavanam. And you have to get this. You need to look at it in a very different eye. For example, if you are studying advanced physics, you can't look at an equation called E equals mc square with just the knowledge that E is the fifth letter, M is the whatever letter, C is the thankfully third letter, and 2 is a number. And it won't make any sense. You are right, of course. E is the fifth letter. Why is the fifth letter equal to, say, 17th letter and third letter and 2? You have missed the point totally. You have missed the wonderful, manifestation of this incredible intelligence totally. Why? Because the way in which you looked at this equation was wrong. Is it really wrong? No, it was not optimal for you to get the maximum meaning out of it. Likewise, we can't look at Brindavan the way we look at Bombay or Brisbane. You see, Brindavan is Brindavan. I use these two cities because it rhymed with B, that's all. Think of any other city like Boston. Okay, you can't look at Brindavan like you'll see Boston. Brindavan is the very land of love, and you need to apply, as it were, in Indian medicine, the collyrium, the anjan, the eyeliner, which we use only for beauty, can actually help you to see things which are generally not seen by a common eye. That's why they use this as an example for giving knowledge, that a guru applies this wonderful eyeliner to his disciple in such a way that he starts seeing the truth and he is not distracted by that which is not the truth. Likewise, we have to apply the collyrium of prema and then see Vrindavan. Then the experience will be very different. So here our Shukamuni is slowly taking us by hand, like a guru will take a disciple by the hand and take him inside a temple. Likewise, Shukamuni is taking us inside this wonderful land laden with love called Vrindavan. And then he explained the season first. There was a monsoon season, and then all the clouds cleared. And as the clouds cleared in the sky, the muddy waters also cleared on the earth. So you had bright blue skies. And you have sparkling, transparent, sheetal, cool water running in the river Yamunaji. If you are a Krishna Bhakta, and specifically there are some traditions in Vrindavan, especially our Pushti Marg shown by Vallabhacharya, where Yamuna Devi is supreme for them. Yamunaji. And as per their philosophy, without Yamuna Devi's kripa, one cannot imagine getting Krishna Prema. For us to get Bhakti, Yamuna ji has to bless us. And here Shukamuni very beautifully is now taking us into the heart of the gopis, and hence experience of Krishna Prema. He starts with the blessings of Yamuna ji. Itham sarasvachajalam Padmagara Sugandhina Nyavishad Vayuna Vatam Sago Gopalako Chutaha. Now our Shukamuni is saying Itham this way, when all this monsoon is over, and then after the monsoon comes this lovely season of autumn. Unfortunately, the way in which you see autumn in US is not the way we see autumn in India. In India, autumn is a lovely season. Autumn is a season where all the flowers again bloom, because autumn is a season which comes after the rainy season here. So in this season, it's called Sharat Rutau. Sharat Rutu. Itam Sarasvacha Jalam. All these wonderful lakes, which has been muddy and which has been very murky during the rainy season, has now been blessed with clear water. How? Our Yamuna ji, generally Ganga ji is seen as a Jnana Nadi. She is a river of knowledge. Knowledge, Jnanam, experiential knowledge, divine knowledge. Our Yamuna ji is a river of Prema. She is called Prema Nadi. So here, since she is a river of love, and love does not know any separation, love does not know to just take. In fact, love knows only to give. This lovely river called Yamunaji gave a portion of herself then and there in the banks of Brindavan, and that became lakes. You say Madu, na? So Yamunaji shared a portion of her love and made small ponds every now and then. And now those have become the reservoirs of love now. And the songs and the wonderful, the water in those lakes is now clear, transparent, and cold, chill. And like a heart of a person who has been blessed with a satsanga of a premi, like our lakes have been blessed with the sangha or the association of Prema Nadi, which is Yamunaji, and it also got a little bit of prema. Likewise, our little lakes have been blessed with a little bit of association with our Yamunaji, and they also became reservoirs of love. And they also have become this wonderful repositories of love. And once they became a repository of love, what happened was and these little wonderful lakes, they themselves become a repository of love. And a person who is in that divine love will have a clear heart, isn't it? Who doesn't want to hide anything, and the heart would be pretty cool. Likewise, the waters in this lake is also in such a state which shows the power of love, inspiring love in the hearts of anybody who comes in association with the person. And these little lakes now have this water which is very cool, and in the mid of the lake there was this wonderful huge 1,000-petal lotus which bloomed in the heart. Like when a person's heart is clear and pure, then the flower of devotion, the flower of prema, it flowers in the heart. Likewise, this little lotuses started blooming in the small little lakes, small little ponds, which were all the water deposited by Yamunaji, and all of them had this wonderful lotuses blooming. And itam sarasvacha jalam padmagara. Love means selflessness, isn't it? And look at this lotus. The most admirable part of the lotus is the flower, isn't it? And anything which is very precious for a person, the person would like to safeguard it. But here is this wonderful lotus, which is advertising its most admirable aspect, which is the flower, by spreading the fragrance of love to all around, inviting the bees to come and say, come, drink deep into the nectar of love. And that's the true nature of love. So, Padmagara Sugandhina, when somebody is a Bhakta or a Bhagavata, when you go even in the presence of such a great Mahatma, you can feel the peace, you can feel the joy, you can feel the love, at least temporarily when we are in his or her presence. Na? We have seen that. Na? That's why we long for the darshan. That's why we long for the company of our Guru Maharaj. Because when we are in his presence, there is some unknown joy, there is some unknown flowering of love in our heart, which is in spite of ourselves, you see. Likewise, these lotuses are blooming, spreading this fragrance of love in form of the fragrance of the lotus, inviting the bees and inviting them and come share my nectar here. And the bees came humming close to our lotuses in the ponds. And the bees were all very happy, the bees were all exhilarated to look at this flower which is opening itself to all of us so that it can share the nectar with all of us, the nectar of love. And the bees started singing the glories of this lotus, which is nothing but Krishna Prema. And the sound or humming of the bees, we all know how a bee hum. Our Swamiji says that the humming of the bees is like a setting of a Shruti. Huh? We call it B sharp. Na? Huh? So B sharp is what these bees are actually creating as a Shruti, so that all the lovely birds of Brindavan could sing without much care, because now Shruti is taken care and they were in tune with the Shruti and they start singing in Brindavan, singing the glories of Bhagavan. Ittam sarasvacha jalam padmagara sugandhina nyavishat vayuna vatam. And our Yamuna Devi is also sending an emissary of cool breeze. Why? Because they are setting the stage for our Bhagavan Sri Krishna to come and to play the flute and bring joy to the entire existence. And when an artist comes, first what do? If you are a very top artist, somebody comes and sets the Shruti for you even before you come. The person with the tambura comes and sits down first. And then the stage is set beautifully, lovely flowers are arranged in the stage, and stage is ensured that it is filled with good fragrance. Air condition has to be switched on in India. In US at some places you need to switch on the heater, but that's a different issue. So likewise, our Yamuna Devi is sending cool breeze. The bees have started giving this wonderful Shruti, and before a main artist comes, small artists will do a small bhajan. Likewise, all these birds are doing a small little introduction piece before our Bhagavan Sri Krishna comes. And then there is this wonderful fragrance of love from these wonderful lotuses. And now Bhagavan Sri Krishna Sa Go Gopalako Achyutaha, along with Gopas, along with the Gopalas, along with the cows, our Bhagavan Sri Krishna enters into this wonderful stage to bless the entire world with his flute. Ittam sarasvacha jalam padmagara sugandhina nyavishat vayuna vatam sa go gopalako achyutaha kusumita vanaraji sushmi bringa. And what is happening there is, slowly all these lotuses which are very beautifully flowered, and all the wonderful fragrance of the lotuses inviting the bees humming, and the birds making wonderful sounds of love, lovely songs to herald the entry of the artist. Everything happens there in Vrindavan. And then there is wonderful sound of our Yamuna ji running, the wonderful breeze moving and her rustling of leaves in the nearby Govardhan mountain, lovely forests. In that, our Bhagavan Sri Krishna enters with his cows, enters with his friends, and along with Balramji, Saha Pashupala Balaha. Who is coming in? Madhupati Avagahya. Bhagavan Sri Krishna is entering. Ga Charayanne Venum Chukuja. Along with all these cows and the cowherds, his friends, and while taking care of these cows and cowherds, everybody talking to his friend here, patting somebody there, but he's playing the flute while entering into Vrindavan. So this is how Bhagavan enters along with his friends into Vrindavan. And somebody asked Bhagavan Sri Krishna, a new person apparently in Vrindavan, saw this wonderful, lovely little boy who had this wonderful hue of blue color all over his body, wearing a colored peacock feather on his crown, and wearing a golden dhoti, pitambaram. He was wearing a golden cloth, and he was having golden tinklets in his feet, His hands had a wonderful kankanam, and both his hands were slowly caressing the flute, and the flute started singing lovely tunes, and everything was bewitching. So this person went and asked Bhagavan Sri Krishna, "Hey little boy, who are you?" And Bhagavan could have said, "I am Krishna." Na? Instead he said, "I am Madhupati." Bhagavan always talks in riddles. Madhupati avagakya. And this old fellow didn't know what he was saying. What Madhupati? What is this Madhupati? Balramji said, he's saying everything about him is sweet. Madhuram. And he is the Lord of sweetness. That's why our Vallabhacharya has written Ashtakam celebrating not Krishna, celebrating the sweetness of Krishna. Everything about Bhagavan Sri Krishna is sweet because love is sweet. And of course, joy is sweet. And Bhagavan is just the sum total of all that. Na? So, Madhupati Avagahakya. And our lovely little Krishna walked inside our Vrindavan to take care of the cows, to herd the cows, along with his friends to play, and while playing the lovely flute. So this is how our Shukamuni is setting the scene for all of us. So that, that's why we should not rush all these Parayana. I know our Prasadji would want to do the reverse, but just look at, I'm trying to expand these two slokas just to give you a sample of how each of these slokas help us slowly to visualize and to help us enter into a different realm, a realm of love and joy, at least for 5-10 minutes a day. And this is dhyanam, this is our spiritual sadhana. It's greater than all the other sadhanas which you can even think of, where you sit down and Ittam Sarasvacha Jalam. The moment you say Ittam means in this way, Sarasvacha Jalam, then immediately you all have the English translation. Some of you can read Tamil or Malayalam or Telugu or Kannada or Hindi. You start looking at the translation and then read it again. I am not here to tell you Venu Geetam. I am here to give you, the competency is a wrong word. The fortune of trying to experience Bhagavatam. That's what I am doing here. You see, if I had to lecture about Venu Geetam, it would have been very different. I am trying to explain to you how to relish Bhagavatam. So here, Sharatvacha Jalam, Swachha Jalam. So the moment you read that, immediately in our heart, even if you have not been to Vrindavan, I assure you, Vrindavan is in your heart. Our Swamiji sings, na? Vrindavaname, Unmaname. While you are reading this is how you read Bhagavatam. This is how you enjoy Bhagavatam. So, Sharat Swachha Jalam. This is this wonderful clear skies, beautiful clear skies, clean, lush greenery everywhere, flowers blooming everywhere, fruits hanging everywhere. And here you have a lovely little lake, and the lake has crystal clear water. Can you see that while I'm telling you? And crystal clear water. You look at the water, you touch the water, there's a small little ripple, but you can see the base of small pebbles in the bottom of the lake, of the pond. And there are some little fishes swimming here and there. And in the center of the lake, there are many, many, many blooming lotuses. As I keep telling you, I hope you can see that in your heart. This is how you enjoy Bhagavatam. And the lotuses are bloomed, and there are some bees coming around the lotuses making the humming sound. And then Padmagara Sugandhina. Now you see, he has brought all the senses there. Sarasvacha Jalam. This is the genius of Shukamuni. We have 5 senses. Na? So you can sense something outside in the world. You can even put the senses back inside and start experiencing the activity of 5 senses by visualization. Visualization is not just visual alone. So Sarat Kalam has happened, and then it's Swachha Jalam, which means it is a transparent water, and Jalam means it's very cold. So you can actually go to Vrindavan in your heart, touch that water and feel the chillness of the water, and little ripples which come in the water. So now you have involved two senses there. Padma Gara Sugandhina. Now he is involving the third sense. Now imagine in your heart wonderful fragrant lotuses. Can you feel the fragrance filling your heart? Nyavishat va yunavatam. Now he is now giving us the sense of touch and feel. Now cool breeze is flowing and caressing our skin inside, of course. Vrindavanam is caressing our soul. Sago Gopalako Achyutaha. Now all what we employ as senses to the world, our Shukamuni has the power to grab it, pull it inside and make it rest in Vrindavanam, which is nothing but Bhagavan. This is what is the greatest spiritual sadhana. Joyful sadhana. Samsaramaya Sukha Vaidya. Nyavishat Vayunavatam. Can you feel the chill air blessed by Yamunaji touching us? Sago Gopalako. Look, about 100 meters away. You find a lovely sapphire, or is it emerald? What is it? Blue, wonderful, shining light coming with all these little boys coming around. Everybody happy, everybody joyous, everybody jumping around, everybody wearing only a small little dhoti in their hips, having a long stick, and little calves running in front shouting meh, meh, and all these little bells ringing in their necks. You bring the whole scene, let me assure you, rest is all very quick, rest is all very simple. If you can bring this scenery of Vrindavan in our heart, this is Dhyanam, this is Vicharam, this is the highest sadhana. You see? And then Kusumita Vanaraji Shushmi Bringa, and then all these little bees are coming close to the flower, drinking its nectar, getting a little drunk with that nectar, and then increasing the Shruti. All the birds are now circling around Bhagavan Sri Krishna, looking at Krishna, feeling the joy of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And then the mountain is sending wonderful fragrant air to please Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And then all these people are entering. Bhagavan Sri Krishna with his lotus eyes, lovely forehead with a small little kasturi tilakam. And his mother has given him a dark blue turban, and the turban was tightly tied in his hair, and all this locks of hair, swirly locks of hair, curly locks of hair, then and there peeping out from the turban. And then he has put a wonderful peacock feather on top, and with a smile, red lips, and wonderful ears, and small little earrings dangling in his ear, touching his cheek every now and then. The cheeks are shining like mirrors. Had a lovely round neck, and he's wearing malas, and he's wearing chain which his mother has put. Wonderful shoulders, long hands, lovely fingers, and Bhagavan wearing a girdle, and he's wearing pitambaram, a shiny dhoti. And then with his lotus feet jumping joyfully, one hand around our Balramji's neck, other hand holding the flute and playing the flute. He is coming with a lot of calves and all his friends inside. The whole purpose of Bhagavatam is, if you can see it in your heart, then your Parayanam is complete, your Bhakti is complete, your Sadhana is complete, everything is complete. That is the beauty of every verse of Bhagavatam like this. And as I was mentioning to you before, once you slowly, using this Shukamuni's words, using our Guru Maharaj's lecture, start experiencing it, Pratibha. What happens is, sparks of new rasa will start flying in your heart. It will be joyful. You will start seeing things which are, you didn't intellectually imagine those things. It will come on its own accord. That's why it is called Bhaktya Bhagavatam Nyayam. I may read a book about the wonderful fall season in, say, Northeast America or Northwest America or whatever. I may read a book about it, I may even see a small short film about it. But if I somehow in the area where the fall season occurs with this wonderful colored leaves strewn everywhere and the leaves falling and varieties of colors, etc., I will discover far more infinite things than just sitting here and knowing about it or just seeing it passively. Na? Likewise, Shukamuni's words, Shukamuni's slokas opened the door for me to be there and for it to be in my heart. And as I explore it, I get new sparks, new wonderful insights. And that's the joy and that's the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So, this is the reason why we thought the joy which we are all experiencing, you all should also. And the first step towards that is do Parayan, read it. And enjoy the words, revere the words. It is the words of one of the greatest humans who ever walked on this earth, called Vyasa Bhagavan. And these words themselves has the power to transform us. And apart from that, we are fortunate to come from a culture where we can understand what we are reading. And thankfully, there are people, Mahatmas, who have translated it, and we have lectures of our Guru Maharaj on it. And so, once with all these wonderful implements, if we can somehow use it by doing Parayan, you do your daily quota and do it. After that, why don't you spend 5 minutes, 1 minute, take one sloka which you like in that whole chapter, sit down and relish it. Itam sarasvachajalam padmagara sugandhina. As you read it, slowly let this whole scene come inside your heart. And initially, this you need to trust me. I can't prove it to you. Initially, it will be only your imagination, of course. But as we progress, our Swamiji assures, we get what is called as Anubhavam, which is no longer our imagination. It is what is. Let me give you a personal experience. When our Swamiji took us all to Brindavan, okay, for the first time, there was this Mama who is right now in one of the villages in South India, one of the cities in South India, and I was there, and Swamiji was there, that Mama was there. We were walking through the gullies of Brindavan. This happened around in 1993. And Swamiji in his very Brindavan, and so he was almost with this boyish enthusiasm, took that Mama and said, this is where this temple is, that temple is. And Mama said, look here, you said you have never been here, but you know everything. And our Swamiji said, Brindavan is in my heart. I know it like back of my hand. And it was incredulous. Then Mama said, oh, you know it that way? Then can you take us to where we came without looking at the road map or the street signs, etc.? And at that very point of time, there was a major power cut. You see, all the lights were off. Our Swamiji said, is that what you want? Caught hold of Mama's hand. Okay, we were all nearby. Started running randomly. The Mama was out of breath. You have to be careful when you ask things, na? So our Swamiji dragging the Mama, we running only by the sound of Mama's gasping. That was our guide, because it was pitch dark. Everything power cut and people were just about to light their lanterns, or what you call in America, candles. And as we ran around 8-10 minutes, Swamiji stopped, we all stopped. And then a few seconds the power also came back on, and we are exactly in the gate of the place called Upika, which was the Uttar Pradesh travel lodging place. And Mama said, Guruji, sorry, Shamikanam, I didn't realize that you were not talking metaphorically. That's Mahatma's greatness. We may not even go near that. But the point is, once you start feeling it, Brindavan becomes your heart. And after reading Krishna Katha again and again, listening to our Swamiji's Bhagavatam again and again, and after that you go to Vrindavan for the first time, I bet you won't feel as if you are entering into a strange land. You will feel very familiar there. That's the mystery, that's the beauty, that's the, divinity of Bhagavatam, of our satsang, of our Guru Maharaj, and also of Vrindavan. Right? With this in mind, now read Bhagavatam. Remember, you are touching the very embodiment of Bhagavan Sri Krishna in form of sound. We are actually interacting with Bhagavan Sri Krishna in form of a grantham. And it will transform you and me. When I say transform, I don't know how we will be more joyous people. We will be more, purposeful people. We will be people who would really live our life to the fullest. Whether it is a professional life or social life or a life of leisure or family life or whatever it is. You can live completely once we start experiencing Bhagavatam. And that's the wonderful fortune we all have been bestowed upon, you see. And that is the reason why I thought, instead of, you might have listened to many of the lectures, I have given much. And of course, our Swamiji, all would have listened. Purnimaji's lecture. Many people have lectured, yes. But here I thought, maybe once in 2 weeks, it's always good to come together as a family to remember, recollect, reminisce the fortune we have been bestowed upon. That was the intent. And this Venu Geetam is something which created, on a personal note, which created a big transformation in a group of people in one of the cities. One of our satsang people, they were telling Venu Geetam to a complete bunch of strangers. Strangers in the sense we don't know them. They were actually in some form of satsang somewhere, and they were all lovers of Krishna, no doubt about it. First time they are listening to a South Indian person coming from somewhere, and some Guruji from Chennai has sent, and all that they heard. So they just came to check out, and the topic was Venu Geetam, you see. And the speaker of the Venu Geetam had this prayer that I'm going to tell all these katha everywhere, and the whole purpose of that was to inspire Krishna Prema, Nam Sankirtan, etc. And the speaker prayed to Bhagavan, our Guru Maharaj, and then went to the satsang. That day, during the Venu Geeta pravachan, suddenly the entire place was suddenly transformed. And the speaker later confided that it was an experience which was not expected. And the people who listened totally came to our Guru Maharaj, got Nama, and they are now doing Nitya Parayana. You need that one experience where suddenly the floodgates of love open in your heart for half a second, and that is enough for life. Imagine that being open all the time, that only Mahatmas can deal. For us, for a second we have that experience, you understand. Then you won't ask questions like, is there God, where is Krishna, what is he saying? That experience will answer all such questions which are actually speaking very trivial. Until we get the experience, no amount of intellectual wrangling will help us, you see. And Venu Geetam gave that experience to some people, you see. And that is how Bhagavatam is. Give it a chance. It will give you that anubhavam. And once you have that anubhavam, for life you are changed. Then all these little nagging questions about spirituality, which many pundits keep asking from cradle to grave, it won't be our botheration at all, because we'll have that clarity. And that is the beauty of Bhagavatam. Persist and enjoy. And whenever you come to Chennai to meet our Swamiji, ask him for one thing apart from your academic, financial, family, whatever success. With bottom of the heart, ask him, please make me a fit, patram, make me a fit a person to relish Bhagavatam, to relish Krishna Katha, so that I live my life fully. And that prayer, if it is genuine, will be blessed by our Guru Maharaj, and that will change the very nature of our life, you see. And that's the beauty of the path which we are all traveling. My time is up. I just took those two slokas to tell you to visualize. Bhagavatam is Anubhavam, remember? Not just cut and dried facts. So visualize it. Bring it to the heart. Whether it is Dhruva's story or Prahalada's story, see it. Allow it to be seen. Don't let the words just be words. Let it become experience in our heart. How we can do it? Read the meaning and dwell upon it. Slowly. Listen to the katha of our Guru Maharaj and let the katha build in us. Let us not listen with our ears. Let us live it with our heart. Then it will make us a rasika, and we will attain the purpose of being in a satsang, reading Bhagavatam, etc. And the beauty is Bhagavatam is all about inner dharma. It's a dharma of heart. It mandates nothing else. And as you chant Mahamantra, as you do japa of Mahamantra, as you do kirtan of Madhura Geetam, all that will help us in this path so that we can get there, more intensely, more quickly. And remember one thing, nowhere in Bhagavatam people quit what they were doing. They did that only when the retirement age came. Ambarisha did not quit being the king. Dhruva did not quit his royal responsibilities. Prahalada went ahead after seeing Bhagavan to rule the kingdom, married, begot kids, everything. So Bhagavatam brings us the balance, brings us the joy, brings us the spirit of life, and helps us to actually relish and live with all our being, you see. That's the beauty of Bhagavatam. So it's with an earnest prayer to the feet of our Guru Maharaj that he makes us progress steadily in this path of reading Bhagavatam, listening to Bhagavatam, above all revering Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam na perse. Bhagavatam bada hai, Bhagavatam is great, Brihat is more than enough. That can bring in tremendous progress to all of us. And thank you once again. You have this full audience today.